Hello and welcome to this information session about our exciting canoe and safari adventure, which takes in both Zambia and Botswana. Before I get started, just a little bit of the boring information, but important nonetheless. Just to reassure you really about the health and safety of the trip, it's always our top priority. So we just want to assure you that we take all necessary steps to make sure that the experience is going to be really safe. We always monitor and follow the advice of the British Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, and they provide recommendations and advice about particular destinations. And basically, if ever they advise against non-essential travel, we will not take you there. We would never operate a trip to an area where there is a risk to our team members, whether that be through a health outbreak, like obviously COVID in recent years, a political issue, natural disasters, or anything at all like that. But if that was to happen and we did need to cancel or postpone the trip, please be reassured that your money is safe and you would be offered an option to postpone to a different set of dates or a full refund. Okay, now that that bit's done, let's get on to the more exciting bit. So run through of the itinerary. So we depart London on a flight to Lusaka, which is the capital of Zambia. It's usually an overnight flight. And then when we get there, the guides are waiting to take us down to Chirundu, which is on the banks of the Zambezi. That's about a 4-hour drive. And there's a permanent camp set up there. So you can see the tents there in the photograph that we'll be staying in. And then there's a big tent where we all eat our dinner that evening. We then set off the next day on the start of our canoeing safari. So they'll give you the briefing. You don't need to worry if you've never done it before, that really doesn't matter. You'll be given all the necessary instruction and training to get started. And as you can see, you're always sharing a canoe with one other person as well. So that means if you aren't so confident or you feel you need a bit of support, we can always pair you with either the guide or the tour manager or a more experienced member of the team. So typically the day's canoeing, we start nice and early while it's fairly cool, and also there's a better chance of seeing the animals on the river when it's cooler in the day. We're always paddling downstream, so it's actually not too difficult. We're not fighting the current. Although having said that, if the wind picks up, it can still be quite hard work, and we do recommend training to get yourself fit for this trip. But as we go, you're basically on your own private safari. We're stopping to view the animals that we see, either animals in the water like the hippos or elephants possibly, or ones that the guides will spot on the shore. We might have a little walk, bring the canoes to one side of the river and then have a little walk to see some animals or the bird life. We generally make a long stop for lunch during the heat of the day. They will find a shaded spot where we can stretch out our mats and relax and enjoy a nice lunch and just say chill out for a little bit before getting back on the river in the afternoon when it's a bit cooler and proceeding downstream to where we're going to set up camp overnight. So camp is just set up on the banks of the river or sometimes on small islands. They're not organised campsites. It is completely wild camping. We just turn up there and pitch our tents and set up a fire. And, the guys will cook dinner and everybody will help. Water is taken from the river for washing. It's important you don't go into the river in most of the areas because generally there are obviously a risk of crocodiles. But having said that, as you'll see later on, there are opportunities where you are able to get in the water. There will be a very basic hole in the ground toilet tent, a short distance from the tents. And one of the loveliest things is just camping out under the stars and enjoying the peace and quiet in the evenings. So a little bit more about the canoes. As you can see here, they are 2-man fiberglass Canadian style canoes, and all your luggage goes with you. So you have your dry bag that contains all of your clothes, your sleeping bags, the mats that are provided for you, and all the food and everything to sustain us on the river for those few days comes with us in the canoes. They are very, very stable. They really do not capsize. So don't worry about that. It's not like you're going to suddenly find yourself in the river. I do keep coming back to the wildlife, and that is the real fantastic experience on this particular trip. You're pretty much guaranteed to see so many hippos, elephants, buffalo, crocodiles. You don't really see much of the crocodiles. You hear a little splash as the tail disappears into the water. Various different impala, kudu, different types of antelope. It's possible you might see big cats. They are in the area, but they are quite scarce and they do keep their distance from people. It's more likely that you might hear them. So sometimes in the evening, sat by the campfire, you might hear lions roaring in the distance, but you're unlikely probably to see them. However, you will do when we get to Chobe later on in the trip. Few more photos here just to give you an idea of what to expect. The sunsets are absolutely stunning, as you can see here. And the top photo on the right there was when elephants decided to join us when we had stopped for our picnic lunch one day. They were just munching away on the bushes in the background, but you can see from our mats that are down on the tree there quite how close they got. And then when the canoeing safari is over, we head back to Chirundu, which is where we started at the beginning of the trip, and all your main luggage will have been left there during the days that we're on the river. And the vehicle is then waiting to take us up to Livingstone. Now, it is a long drive, but it's an interesting drive. It's around about 8 hours, so it takes pretty much all day, but we do make plenty of stops for a bite to eat and to go to the shops and to just have a toilet break along the way. When we get to Livingstone, we check into Jolly Boys Lodge, which is our base for the next few nights. And that's a really comfortable lodge where you'll have nice, comfortable twin ensuite rooms. There's a swimming pool, there's a bar. So it's a little bit of, almost feels a little bit luxurious after our days on the river. Just some photos here of the place where we stay. And then the final day, sorry, not the final day at all. We have a day in Livingstone to completely relax and do what you want to do. Livingstone is a real hub of activities. You can do so many different things there, and we haven't included any because it's very much down to personal preference. If you want, you can just chill out by the pool and relax all day. You're probably going to want to go and visit Victoria Falls, I'd have thought, which you can do very easily. Or if you're feeling a little bit more adventurous, there are things like helicopter flights. You can even do a bungee jump. You can do microlight flights. You can go whitewater rafting. There are so many different activities, and all of those can be booked and paid for locally. So you don't need to sort of make a decision now what you want to do. You can decide far nearer the time. And here's a few photos just to maybe tempt you a bit further. That view of the falls is taken from a helicopter, that second slide along. So you really get to see the waterfalls from a different angle if you go up in the air, which you can either do on the helicopter, or on the far right-hand side here, you can go up on a microlight if you're feeling particularly adventurous. And then we head across into Botswana and spend a couple of nights on safari in Chobe, which is absolutely stunning. So it's only about an hour and a half drive to get to the border. And then the first thing we do when we get into the national park there is go on a river cruise, where you might think, well, I've just spent all this time on the river in Zambia. How can it be any different? But actually it is. There are different animals up there. And just the fact that you're on this boat where you glide along, you're actually in a much better position, I guess, to take good photographs, because you're not having to worry about paddling and what have you. You can relax and enjoy it a little bit more. Then after we've had lunch, you go on a game drive, and this is where you will see some of the animals that we didn't see in the lower Zambezi. So for example, you will see giraffe and zebra. You don't see those in that different part of Zambia further north. We're very likely to see lions. If we're lucky, we might see a cheetah or leopard. And yeah, it's just an absolutely amazing safari experience. And then we stay overnight at an organised campsite. So it's not quite the wild camping that we were doing on the Zambezi. It's a more structured campsite in the park, where again, you're in very similar sort of two-man tents, and there are some toilets and washing facilities. And then the following morning, we get up and do another early game drive, because obviously that's a really good time of the day to see the animals before we return to Livingstone for our final night back at Jolly Boys. A few photos here of some of the animals that you're likely to spot, including the lions and a leopard there, which was amazing. And then we head back to Lusaka. So this will depend on the flight schedules. There is a possibility that we may be able to fly you back from Livingstone. If not, then it will be overland back to Lusaka for our final night there. And it's about a 7-hour drive with plenty of stops on the way. And when we get to Lusaka, we stay in Eureka Lodge, which is a very basic game reserve on the edge of town. Simple A-frame huts, but they do have ensuite facilities. And again, there's a little swimming pool. And we have a farewell dinner before flying home the next day. Okay, so I'm just going to run through a little bit more information that you might have questions and want to know about. So the camping, we are camping at various stages of this trip. The first night you are actually under canvas, but it's a permanent camp. So on that place in Chirundu, there will be a proper shower and toilet block. But then when we're on the river, it's far more basic. So these are the kind of tents you'll be in. And you can kind of see it's almost like a big built-in mosquito net that you can choose to put a cover on or not, depending on your wish. Sometimes we just leave them because you can enjoy the fresh air coming in and look at the stars a bit more, but still know that you're protected from the insects because you're under that kind of mesh netting. Sleeping bags and sleeping mats are actually provided, but you do need to bring a sleeping bag liner so that you've got your own sort of a clean thing to get into each night. We will provide you with a full kit list, and some things, if you don't want to go out and buy them, it might be possible to hire. Food and drink. So when we're on the river, we have a cook. One of the canoe guides doubles up as a cook, and they travel with us and will prepare the most amazing meals from scratch. We can pretty much cater for all dietary requirements. So things like if you're vegetarian, vegan, if you've got any particular allergies, please just make sure we know in advance so that we can prepare accordingly. All the water they use will be boiled or purified. We actually carry a lot of big water with us that they pour into these blue containers, like you can see there at the end of the table on that second photo. And then you just fill up your water bottles from these big containers. But it's all very, very, very clean water that is used, both for cooking and for drinking. Bathroom facilities, so they do vary. When we're in the guest houses or sort of hotel at the end, then of course, as I said, you do have ensuite facilities with flushing toilets and hot showers. But during the camping, it's far more basic. The camping on the river, it will literally be a tent with a hole in the ground dug into it. And then they'll take water. As I say, you've always got water because we're near the river that they will take out in buckets so that you can have a chance for a wash. Now, some of the campsites, such as the first night in Chirundu and probably the last night of the trek as well, have permanent toilet blocks. So which will be like either a long drop toilet or it might even be a proper flushing toilet, and there will be showers as well. It's important that you bring some of your own toilet paper, plenty of hand wash, things like that. It's also worth bringing like a little bag of dog poo bags or nappy bags, because if you do just need to go to the toilet during the day, for example, when we stop at lunch, there won't be an actual toilet there. So it's a question of going behind a tree. And of course, we don't want to leave any trace behind. So you will take your tissue with you and dispose of it when you get to camp in the evening. As we've already mentioned, there will be the odd opportunity where you might be able to go in the river. So bring your swimming costume and a small towel, and that's a really nice thing to do as well. We only do that in an area that they know is totally safe, and there is obviously no risk of crocodiles, just to reassure you. So as I've already mentioned, during the canoe safari, your luggage is carried with you, which means you should be packing it in a waterproof bag. And again, these can be hired if you don't want to go out and buy one. You'll also need a small day pack or a dry bag. That's what you will have access to during the day, because we don't unload the canoes for lunch or anything like that. So you will need a little bag in the canoe with you that's got things like your water bottle, suntan lotion, camera, anything else that you might need during the day. Anything that you're not going to take on the canoe safari, you leave back in Chirundu, and then after our 3 days on the river, we go back and pick that up. And the same actually applies up in Chobe as well. So when we get to when we leave Livingstone to go to Chobe, you can leave everything, your main luggage there in Jolly Boys, and just take a little overnight bag for that one night where we're camping in Chobe National Park. The climate and conditions, it does vary considerably, but at this time of the year, it tends to be between sort of 13 to up to 30. It can get pretty hot. And of course, we're fairly near the equator. When the sun is out, the sunlight really is very strong. So it's super important that you do bring sun cream and a sun hat, a wide brimmed sun hat with you. Better than a cap, because a sun hat will actually protect more of your upper body rather than just your face. However, nighttime can get pretty chilly. It can almost get down to 0 degrees. It's unlikely at this time of the year, but it could do. So it is important to bring some layers to keep you warm in the evenings. Generally speaking, t-shirt and shorts are absolutely perfect for the days, whether that be on safari or the days on the river, but do bring those extra layers and a warm fleece for the evening. So a few more questions that we get asked. Communication, there is some phone signal on the river, but not all the time. But obviously we can't ever guarantee that. But there is Wi-Fi available in most of the hotels. So when you're at the lodge in Chirundu and in Jolly Boys and at the end in Lusaka, that will be an opportunity where you can get on the internet if you want to. You'll need to arrange your own personal travel insurance because, of course, that will depend on various things such as your age and your medical background. On age, there is no upper age limit, but the minimum is 18. We will accept 16 or 17-year-olds if you're accompanied by a parent or guardian. If you've got any medical problems, then chances are you're still absolutely fine to come. We do need you to declare those medical conditions on your booking form, and it might be necessary to just check with your GP that they feel happy that you can come on this kind of trip. If you've got any queries, just obviously raise that with us at the time of booking. Now, what support will you get? So if you're doing this trek to raise money for a charity, then the fundraising team at that charity will fully support you throughout with your fundraising and help you to reach that goal. From our point of view, you'll be given a kit list, a full trip dossier. We'll give you some training tips, discount vouchers, and any other sort of information that you need to know. We're here. You can always give us a call, drop us an email, and we will answer those questions. On the trip itself, we have a tour manager from Different Travel that will travel with you. So they will be with you right the way from the airport in the UK until you get back into the UK. And they're there to help you and support you and deal with any problems that may arise. And then on the ground in Africa, we've got a fantastic team of English-speaking local guides who, again, will be there to take the lead on the river. They are very well-trained safari game rangers. They know how to spot and identify all the animals. They know all the risks and the dangers and how to avoid those. And you will feel in very, very safe hands with those guys, I can assure you. Closer to the time, we'll do a pre-departure meeting, which may well be online, depending on where everybody's based, but it will be an opportunity for you to find out a little bit more, meet your fellow travellers, and obviously ask any last-minute questions that you have at that point in time. So, big question, how much does it cost? So it is an experience of a lifetime, this one, and we fully appreciate it. It's not cheap. However, it is such an incredible experience. There are two aspects to the trip. Initially, you have to pay a registration fee at the time of booking. Now, that registration fee is £495. Now, if you sign up more than a year in advance, then you can break that down and pay in instalments. That's absolutely fine. Just let our team know, and then we'll be able to make those arrangements for you to pay in 2 or 3 instalments if that makes it easier for you. Now, if you're doing this trip as a regular holiday and you want to cover the cost yourself, then you will have to pay a further £3,105. If you want, you can obviously fundraise on top of that, but that will be basically covering the cost of the trip for you to pay yourself. Now, another option, if you did want to do this trip as a fundraising challenge for charity, is to fundraise £6,210 for your chosen charity. And that basically will cover the cost of your trip plus an equal size donation to the charity. And then, of course, you've got a flexible option where you can do a little bit half and half, depending on what suits you. But if you've got any questions, have a word with us, have a word with the charity that you're thinking of raising money for, and we'll be able to point you in the right direction. Now, included in that payment, your return international flights between London and Zambia, all the transport in Zambia and in Botswana, the accommodation in the hotels and guest houses, and then the camping when we're on safari, all meals throughout. You don't have to worry about any meals at all. Local English-speaking guides, a full support crew of the camp cooks and the drivers when you're on safari, the boat drivers on the river. A British, someone from our team coming out from the UK with you as tour manager. And then, of course, support, ideas, tips with your fundraising and trip preparation as well. Things that you need to consider that are not included. So any personal expenses. So when we're at the nights in hotels, you might want to buy a drink, for example. There will be opportunities for souvenir shopping. Vaccinations and any medical things. We recommend you see your doctor just to double check with them what they recommend. It is a malaria zone, so chances are you will be advised to take anti-malarial medication, and there are other inoculations that could well be recommended for where you're going. Travel insurance, we've already mentioned. Tipping. Now, tipping is obviously entirely optional, but people do feel very, very well looked after and generally do like to give a nice tip to the local support crew. Based on past experience, we would suggest around about £50 is probably what you need to budget for that, but it is optional, it's entirely up to you. Personal kit and equipment, as I said, you don't need a lot because the tents, the sleeping bags and the mats are all provided, so it's really just your clothes and a sleeping bag liner. And then there may be some visa charges. Now, at the moment, tourist visas are actually free for Zambia, so you don't need to worry about the cost for that, but it does change. So there is a possibility that that might be implemented before we go, but we'll keep you posted. There's also no visa fees needed for Botswana at the moment either. We'll keep you updated, and if anything like that changes, we will give you all the information you do need to make those visa applications in advance. Fingers crossed, it will remain free of charge. So how do you book? On our website, you can look for Zambia and you will find it there under our trip for 2024. If you have any questions, please do drop us a line or give us a call. We're always very, very happy to talk about this trip and answer any other questions that you may have. We really hope you can join us. It is one of the most amazing trips that we do. It's a fantastic experience and we'd love to have you come and join the team. Thank you very much.